The explosion in the sky was a kaleidoscope of colors, an aurora borealis on steroids that rippled through Earth's atmosphere like a cosmic prank gone awry. For everyone on the ground, it was the end of the world. For Captain Ray Castillo, it was just another Tuesday. She watched from her perch in the command center, a makeshift bunker in what used to be the Pentagon, as the Earth's surface was reshaped in a matter of seconds. Oceans boiled into steam only to rain down again as lukewarm puddles of hydrogen soup. "Well, that's new," muttered Ray, her voice echoing against the concrete vault that now served as humanity's last nerve center. Her team, each as battered and reckless as the world outside, scrambled around her in a controlled frenzy of shouts and rapid keystrokes. "Incoming transmission," yelled Gomez, the tech whiz with a penchant for chaos and caffeine. His fingers danced over the console, pulling the signal from the ether like a magician retrieving a rabbit from a hat. "It's from Saturn's rings." Ray blinked. "Seriously? We're getting prank calls from space now?" "Not a prank, Captain. It's a distress signal," Gomez insisted, his eyes wide with the thrill of the unexpected. The screen flickered to life, revealing an alien visage unlike any in human records. Its skin shimmered with iridescent scales, and its eyes glowed with a light that seemed to pierce through dimensions. "Humans," it began, its tone echoing with a confidence that suggested they weren't used to being interrupted. "Our terraforming systems have accidentally activated, reshaping your planet. We offer apologies." Ray crossed her arms, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Accidentally, huh? You guys need a better IT department." The alien continued, oblivious to Ray's sarcasm. "Your planet is now a Class 5 biosphere, suitable for our species. We advise immediate evacuation to prevent further mutation of your biology." "Evacuation?" Ray asked, leaning forward with a dangerous glint in her eyes. "You must be joking, or you really don't know us. Earth isn't a place people just leave." The alien hesitated, its eyes narrowing as if recalibrating its understanding of the species it had addressed. "We mean no harm, but our survival requires—" "You can save the apology speech," Ray interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. "We're not known for our hospitality when threatened." As the transmission ended, Ray turned to her team, her voice filled with reckless determination. "Okay, folks, looks like we have some uninvited guests hiding out in Saturn's rings. Let's crash their little party." Within moments, plans were in motion. Earth's last defenders against an inadvertent apocalypse surged into action, minds spinning with the thrill of the unexpected challenge. Ray punched the coordinates into the makeshift warp system they'd scavenged together from the remains of defunct space agencies. The temple, an ancient structure buried within the dense, icy rings of Saturn, awaited them. It wasn't just a temple now. It was the nerve center of the interstellar blunder that threatened humanity. As the team braced for warp, Ray felt a thrill she hadn't experienced since the world went to hell. "All right, let's show these aliens how we handle a cosmic mix-up." The room vibrated with energy as the warp drive screamed into life, catapulting them toward the unknown. But one thing was clear: this time, humanity wouldn't be underestimated. The world had been reduced to a smoldering carcass, its surface pockmarked with craters like the moon after a cosmic fistfight. The skies were a permanent shade of gunmetal gray, an eternal twilight that sucked the color from everything, leaving only the monochrome palette of despair. But humans, the cockroaches of the universe, were still standing, or at least, staggering forward on shaky legs. Carter, former mechanic, now reluctant leader of the ragtag group of survivors, stood on the edge of the encampment. His eyes scanned the horizon, looking for the telltale shimmer of the drones. They were out there, lurking, waiting for the smallest hint of movement. Carter spat into the dirt, the acrid taste of smoke lingering on his tongue. "Damn tin cans," he muttered. "Gonna need more than rust to take them down." Behind him, the camp buzzed with the frenetic energy of people whose lives depended on staying busy. The tents were patched with scavenged tarps, and the smell of boiling potatoes mingled with the scent of unwashed bodies. Carter turned to see Maggie, her face streaked with grime and determination, tinkering with a contraption that looked like it had been cobbled together from the entrails of a dozen different machines. "What are you up to, Maggie?" Carter asked, trying to keep his voice light. "Trying to make a signal jammer," she replied without looking up. Her fingers danced over the wires with the precision of someone who didn't have time to consider failure. "If we can scramble their frequencies, we might buy ourselves some time." Carter nodded, though he knew time was a commodity they were quickly running out of. A whoosh overhead drew his gaze skyward. It was just a bird, one of the few living things that still dared to fly. Carter watched it for a moment, envying its freedom before reality yanked him back down to earth. "How's it looking out there?" asked Charlie, a wiry teenager with more guts than sense, who sauntered over with a rifle slung lazily across his shoulder. "Quiet," said Carter. "Too quiet. Feels like the calm before the storm." Charlie nodded, his face setting into a mask of resolve that looked out of place on someone so young. "We can't stay here forever. We need supplies." Carter sighed. "I know, but every time we go out, we run the risk of getting spotted. And if they find us?" He left the sentence hanging, but the implications were clear. The machines weren't just hunting, they were exterminating. The once bustling cities were now graveyards, patrolled by the shiny invaders that combed through the ruins like vultures picking at bones. The machines had come from nowhere, striking with surgical precision. Governments crumbled, defenses were systematically dismantled, and the world descended into chaos. "Then we hit them first," Charlie said, his voice tinged with youthful bravado. Carter chuckled, shaking his head. "This ain't one of those video games you used to play, kid. This is real life." "But what if we could hit them?" Maggie chimed in, her eyes gleaming with a spark of inspiration. "If we take out one of their command centers, it could disrupt their operations, maybe even shut them down." "That's a big if," Carter replied, crossing his arms over his chest. "We don't even know where their command centers are, let alone how to take them out." "We have to try something," Maggie insisted. "We can't just sit here waiting to die." Carter rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of leadership settling heavily on his shoulders. He was a mechanic, not a general, but these people needed him. They needed someone to believe in, even if he was just winging it half the time. "All right," he said finally. "We'll scout the area, see if we can find anything useful. But we're not taking unnecessary risks." Charlie grinned, already eager for action. Maggie's determination was infectious, and Carter felt a flicker of hope, the kind that had been all but extinguished since the invasion. As they gathered their gear, a low rumble echoed across the landscape, growing louder by the second. Carter's heart sank. He recognized that sound, a convoy of drones, sweeping through the area like a plague of locusts. "Get down," he barked, diving for cover. The camp erupted into chaos as people scattered, diving into the trenches they'd dug for such emergencies. Carter flattened himself against the ground, peering through the tangled brush as the drones appeared on the horizon, sleek and menacing, gliding through the air with predatory grace. Maggie was beside him, clutching her makeshift jammer. "Do you think it'll work?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din. "Only one way to find out," Carter replied grimly. Maggie activated the jammer, a whirring contraption that emitted a high-pitched frequency that made Carter's teeth ache. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the drones began to shudder mid-flight, their orderly formation dissolving into chaos as they collided with each other, falling from the sky like metallic rain. "Holy crap, it worked!" Charlie shouted, his voice tinged with awe. Carter allowed himself a brief smile. "Nice job, Maggie." But their victory was short-lived. A new sound filled the air, a low, ominous hum that made the ground vibrate. Carter's stomach tightened with dread as he realized what it was. A larger drone, the size of a small aircraft, emerged from behind the hills, its sleek body bristling with weaponry. "Get to the caves," Carter yelled, his voice barely audible over the roar of the approaching behemoth. The survivors scrambled for the relative safety of the caves that dotted the landscape. Carter grabbed Charlie by the arm, dragging him along as the massive drone fired a volley of missiles, turning the camp into a blazing inferno. Inside the cave, the air was thick with dust and fear. Carter's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a reminder of how close they'd come to annihilation. He looked around at the huddled group, their faces a mixture of relief and terror. "We can't stay here," Maggie said, her voice shaking. "They'll send more." Carter nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "We need a new plan. And fast." The cave was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from a lantern that flickered with each anxious breath. Outside, they could hear the mechanical whine of drones patrolling the area, searching for survivors. "We need to find that command center," Carter said, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. "If we can hit them where it hurts, we might stand a chance." "But how?" Charlie asked, his earlier bravado replaced with uncertainty. Carter looked at Maggie, her face set with determination. "Do you think you can rig something up to track their signals? Maybe find out where they're coming from?" Maggie nodded, her eyes alight with the challenge. "I can try, but I'll need parts and a distraction." Carter considered their options. "All right, Charlie, you and I will create a diversion. Maggie, you work on the tracker. Everyone else, gather what supplies you can carry. We're moving out at first light." The group nodded, their fear tempered with resolve. They had no choice but to fight. It was that or be ground into dust beneath the relentless march of the machines. As night fell, Carter and Charlie slipped out of the cave, moving stealthily through the shadows. The land was a wasteland, littered with the remnants of a once thriving civilization. They crept toward the remains of their camp, now a smoldering ruin, and began setting their trap. "Think this'll work?" Charlie asked, his voice low as he arranged the explosives they'd managed to salvage. "It'll have to," Carter replied, his eyes scanning the darkness for any signs of movement. "As long as it draws their attention away from Maggie and the others." Charlie nodded, his hands trembling slightly as he connected the wires. "Ready." They retreated to a safe distance, crouching behind a pile of debris. Carter held the detonator in his hand, waiting for the right moment. The drones appeared again, their red eyes glowing like malevolent stars. Carter took a deep breath and pressed the button. The night exploded into chaos, flames licking the sky as the remains of the camp erupted in a shower of fire and metal. "Run!" Carter shouted, grabbing Charlie's arm and sprinting back toward the caves. The sound of the drones' weapons filled the air, but they kept moving, adrenaline propelling them forward. Back in the cave, Maggie was hunched over her makeshift workstation, a tangle of wires and circuits spread out before her. She didn't look up as Carter and Charlie burst in, breathless and covered in soot. "How's it going?" Carter asked, trying to catch his breath. "Almost there," Maggie replied, her focus unwavering. "Just need another minute." Outside, the drones were closing in, the sound of their approach growing louder. Carter positioned himself at the entrance, his rifle at the ready. "No pressure, Maggie, but we could really use a miracle right about now." Maggie didn't respond, her fingers flying over the controls with a speed born of desperation. Finally, she let out a triumphant cry. "Got it. I've pinpointed the command center's location." Carter leaned over to look at the makeshift map she'd cobbled together on an old tablet. "That's a long way to go," he said, his heart sinking at the distance they'd have to cover. "We don't have a choice," Maggie said, determination etched into her features. "It's now or never." Carter nodded, his mind racing as he formulated a plan. "All right, we move out at dawn. Travel light, stay off the main roads. We'll have to move fast and keep a low profile." The group set to work, gathering their limited supplies and preparing for the journey ahead. They were a motley crew, united only by the shared will to survive and the slim hope that they could turn the tide. Dawn broke with a muted glow, the sun struggling to penetrate the haze that hung over the land like a shroud. The survivors slipped out of the cave in single file, their movements cautious and deliberate. The journey was grueling, each step a battle against fatigue and fear. They moved through the desolate landscape, avoiding the crumbling highways and sticking to the cover of the ruined buildings. The ever-present threat of discovery hung over them like a guillotine. As they neared the coordinates Maggie had pinpointed, the air grew tense with anticipation. They crouched in the shadow of a collapsed overpass, the command center looming in the distance. It was a towering structure of steel and glass, a stark reminder of the invaders' power. "What's the plan, boss?" Charlie asked, his voice a mix of excitement and anxiety. Carter surveyed the scene, his mind working overtime. "We split into 2 teams. Charlie, you take the high ground and cover us. Maggie, you're with me. We'll find a way in and plant the charges." They moved quickly, each second precious as they navigated the perimeter of the facility. The ground was littered with debris, the remnants of battles fought and lost. Carter led the way, his heart pounding as they approached a side entrance. Inside, the facility was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, the walls humming with the energy of the machines. Carter and Maggie moved with the stealth of predators, their senses heightened as they searched for the core. "This is it," Maggie whispered, pointing to a reinforced door. "The main server room." Carter nodded, his grip tightening on the detonator. "Let's make it count." They worked quickly, setting the charges with practiced efficiency. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor, and Carter's heart leapt into his throat. "We've got company," he muttered, glancing at Maggie. "Almost done," she replied, her voice steady despite the danger. The door burst open, and Carter swung around, firing his rifle in a controlled burst. The drones advanced, their metal bodies impervious to fear or pain. Maggie finished setting the charges, and they retreated, firing as they went. "Charlie, we're coming out hot," Carter shouted into his radio as they raced toward the exit. "Copy that," Charlie's voice crackled back. "I've got you covered." They burst out into the open, the facility erupting behind them as the charges detonated. The shockwave knocked them to the ground, and Carter scrambled to his feet, dragging Maggie with him. "Move," he yelled, adrenaline fueling their flight as they sprinted toward the rendezvous point. The sky was ablaze with fire and smoke, the sound of battle filling the air. But amidst the chaos, Carter felt a flicker of hope. They had struck a blow, however small, against the enemy. And as long as they kept fighting, there was a chance, a reckless, desperate chance, that humanity might yet prevail. They regrouped with Charlie, who wore a triumphant grin. "That was one hell of a show," he said, clapping Carter on the back. The horizon was a distorted mirage of glimmering heat and twisted metal, where skyscrapers rose like skeletal fingers clawing out of the molten earth. The air shimmered with the stench of sulfur and ash, remnants of a once thriving civilization now blanketed under the consequences of a cosmic joke, an unscheduled terraforming event that had flipped Earth like a pancake in a cosmic diner. Dr. Alara Grant peered through the cracked visor of her environmental suit. Sweat slicked her brow, pooling around her neck like an impatient river. Her eyes caught the sight of a rusted billboard, half consumed by creeping alien vines, proclaiming in faded letters, "Welcome to New York, the city that never sleeps." Below it, a graffiti scrawl added, "Now in perpetual nightmare." "Alara, you still there?" crackled a voice over the comms, cutting through the oppressive silence. "Yeah, Jonas, just enjoying the view," Alara replied, her voice tinged with a sharpness that belied the exhaustion in her bones. Jonas had been her partner in this madness from the beginning, back when the clouds first turned green and the moon blinked twice before disappearing altogether. "Stay focused," Jonas chided gently, his tone laced with the kind of earnest concern that only comes after surviving 2 solar flares and a meteor shower together. "Scouts report another shift in the terraforming matrix. Looks like it's heading our way." Alara grimaced. The terraforming matrix was a euphemism for whatever alien machinery had decided Earth needed a makeover. The creatures that had arrived in its wake, spindly things with too many eyes and a penchant for rearranging geography like a child bored with their toy blocks, were just the decorators. How long? She asked, already dreading the answer. Hours, maybe less if the wind picks up. The wind always picked up, as if the universe itself wanted to see how far it could push the remnants of humanity before they snapped. Alara clambered over a twisted mass of steel that might have once been a car. Beside her, Jonas emerged from the shadows, his suit scuffed and patched with a dozen repairs. His dark eyes met hers, and for a moment, the chaos around them blurred into insignificance. "Think we'll ever get used to this?" Jonas asked, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "If we do, we're in bigger trouble than I thought," Alara replied, matching his grin despite the sinking feeling in her gut. They had survived thus far on a heady mix of adrenaline and grim humor, but every new day seemed intent on testing their limits. A distant rumble shook the earth, a reminder that time was a luxury they couldn't afford. Alara and Jonas pressed on, navigating the labyrinthine streets of a city now more akin to a jungle, where vines crept along crumbling facades and alien fauna skittered in the darkened recesses. Their destination was the remnants of a research facility, one of the few places that might hold answers, or at least the illusion of them. Alara's mind spun with equations and theories, each one more improbable than the last, but desperation was the mother of invention, and right now, she was pregnant with possibility. They reached the facility's entrance, a gaping maw of shattered glass and twisted metal. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust, the silence punctuated only by the distant hum of alien machinery. "Remind me again why we're here?" Jonas asked, his voice echoing through the shadows. "Because hope is a dangerous thing, and I'm a sucker for punishment," Alara replied, her gaze scanning the darkened corridors for any sign of life, or worse. The facility was a maze of abandoned laboratories and offices, each one a snapshot of panic and chaos. Papers lay strewn across the floor, computers blinked futilely in the dark, and the occasional skeleton served as a grim reminder of those who hadn't made it out in time. Alara's fingers brushed against a keyboard, the cold plastic a stark contrast to the warmth of her skin. She hesitated, then began typing, coaxing the machine to life with a series of commands and overrides. The screen flickered, lines of code scrolling past in a blur as she searched for something, anything, that might tilt the odds in their favor. Jonas stood guard, his eyes scanning the shadows for threats, both familiar and foreign. "We need more than theories, Alara. We need a miracle. Miracles are just science we don't understand yet," Alara muttered, her focus narrowing to the data before her. "And I intend to understand." The minutes stretched into an eternity, each one a heartbeat in the tense silence. Alara's pulse quickened as she stumbled upon a file, buried deep within the system, a blueprint, of sorts, for the terraforming technology. It was incomplete, fragmented, but it was more than they had before. "Jonas, look at this," Alara said, motioning him over. Jonas leaned in, his brow furrowing as he studied the screen. "Looks like a map of what they're doing to the planet," Alara confirmed. "If we can decipher it, maybe we can find a way to stop it. Or at least slow it down," Jonas added, hope flickering in his eyes like a candle in a storm. The ground trembled beneath their feet, a reminder of the urgency that hung over them. The map was their lifeline, a thread of possibility in a world unraveling at the seams. But as they pored over the data, a new complication arose, one that neither of them had anticipated. "Alara, there's something else here," Jonas said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "It's not just terraforming, it's restructuring." "Restructuring?" Alara echoed, a shiver running down her spine. "Yeah, they're not just changing the landscape, they're altering the fundamental laws of physics. Gravity, time, reality itself." The revelation hung between them like a specter, casting long shadows over their fragile hopes. If the aliens could rewrite the rules of existence, what chance did humanity have? Alara's mind raced, her thoughts a chaotic whirlwind of fear and determination. The stakes had just been raised, and the weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders with crushing inevitability. Then we have to move faster, she said, her voice steady despite the storm within. We need to warn the others, find a way to fight back. And if we can't? Jonas asked, the question unspoken but understood. Then we go down fighting, Alara replied, a fierce resolve burning in her eyes. Because if this is the end, I'm not going to spend it hiding. Jonas nodded, a silent agreement that needed no words. Together, they were a force of nature, a beacon of defiance in a world teetering on the brink of annihilation. They gathered what data they could, their movements hurried and precise, like surgeons in the midst of a crisis. As they prepared to leave, a distant sound, a low, resonant hum, filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. What's that? Jonas asked, his voice tense. Alara's heart skipped a beat as realization dawned. The Matrix, it's here. The facility shuddered around them, walls groaning as the alien machinery encroached upon their sanctuary. They had minutes, if that, to escape before the terraforming wave swept them away. Run, Alara shouted, and they bolted for the exit, feet pounding against the floor as the world dissolved into chaos. The hum rose to a deafening crescendo, drowning out all other sounds as they raced through the corridors, the ground shifting beneath their feet like a living thing. The exit loomed ahead, a beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. Alara and Jonas burst into the open, the oppressive heat and acrid air hitting them like a physical force. Behind them, the facility crumbled, swallowed by the inexorable advance of alien technology. They stumbled to a halt, breathless and battered, but alive. Around them, the landscape transformed, buildings and streets twisting into alien forms, the sky a kaleidoscope of unnatural colors. We made it, Jonas gasped, a wild grin on his face. For now, Alara replied, her gaze fixed on the horizon, where the alien machinery continued its relentless march. They had survived another day, but the battle was far from over. The odds were stacked against them, the scope of the challenge more daunting than they had ever imagined. But in that moment, standing side by side amidst the ruins of a world reborn, Alara felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared acknowledge, hope. It was fragile and fleeting, a single ember in the darkness, but it was enough. Enough to light their path forward, to fuel their fight against an enemy that seemed insurmountable. Enough to remind them that humanity, for all its flaws and frailties, had an uncanny knack for defying the impossible. And so they pressed on, driven by the reckless belief that somewhere, somehow, they would find a way to reclaim their world, to carve out a future in a universe that had rewritten the rules. Because if there was one thing Alara knew, it was that humans were nothing if not adaptable. They had faced extinction before and emerged stronger, and this time, she was determined that they would do so again. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and despair, but Alara and Jonas faced it together, their shared determination a bulwark against the rising tide. As they vanished into the alien landscape, a new day dawning in shades of green and gold, the universe watched with bated breath, waiting to see if these fragile creatures could overcome the odds once more. For in the end, it wasn't just about survival, it was about proving, against all logic and reason, that humanity was worth saving. The sun was a distant memory, a ghost flickering behind layers of acrid smoke and perpetual cloud. The world had gone dark, and with it, humanity's fortunes had taken a nosedive into the abyss. Yet, in the heart of this apocalypse, the human spirit flickered defiantly, like a candle in a hurricane. "Move your asses," barked Captain Elias Montero, his voice cutting through the chaos like a whip. Around him, what was left of his unit scrambled over the remnants of what had once been an overpass, now a twisted monument of steel and concrete. The ground beneath was a jagged landscape of rust and ruin, treacherous and unyielding. "Captain, we've got hostiles on our six," screamed Lieutenant Vera Cho, her eyes wild beneath the soot-streaked visor of her helmet. The air shimmered as a plasma bolt screamed past, striking a nearby wreck with a sizzle that sent shards of molten metal into the air. "Keep moving, damn it," Elias urged, a cocktail of adrenaline and despair pumping through his veins. They were being hunted, and not by something as banal as another human faction. The real predators of this shattered world were the Zyrex, a race of biomechanical nightmares that had descended upon Earth like locusts on a fresh crop. The Zyrex had not just come to conquer. They had come to exterminate, to erase humanity from the cosmic ledger. And they were doing a hell of a job at it. Vera ducked as another bolt whizzed past. Shit, we need to find cover. Elias scanned the horizon, his mind a swirling tempest of tactical calculations and survival instincts. There, a breach in the twisted metal, leading into the belly of what used to be a mighty skyscraper. Or at least, what was left of it. In there, he pointed, already moving. The squad followed, their trust in their captain outweighed only by the desperation to stay alive. The interior was a cathedral of chaos, beams jutting at odd angles, floors collapsed into each other, and debris scattered like confetti from hell's own celebration. But it was cover, and right now, that was more precious than gold. Set up a perimeter, Elias ordered, his voice a low growl. He leaned against a crumbling wall, trying to catch his breath. Around him, his people moved, their faces pale and drawn beneath layers of grime and exhaustion. We can't keep this up, Vera said, slumping down beside him. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the cracks in her hardened exterior. We're running out of ammo and options. Elias glanced at his meager supplies. Vera was right. They were down to their last few clips, and their rations had been exhausted 3 days ago. We don't have a choice, he said, his tone as resolute as the steel beams around them. The ground trembled, a faint but ominous vibration that rippled through the debris. The Zyrex were relentless, their pursuit a deadly game of cat and mouse. Elias knew they could not stay here for long. Captain, came a voice from the gloom. It was Corporal Jensen, a wiry woman with an uncanny knack for survival. I found something. Might be useful. Elias followed her through the wreckage, past the skeletal remains of office furniture and shattered glass. Jensen led him to a cavernous room, where the dim light revealed a sight that made his heart jump, a server farm, or what was left of it. The machines were ancient, relics from before the fall, but they might just hold the key to evening the odds. If we can get these working, Jensen said, we might be able to tap into the old defense network. It's a long shot, but Elias was already nodding. Long shots were their bread and butter now. Do it, whatever it takes. As Jensen and a few others began their desperate attempt to resurrect the dead machines, Elias returned to the rest of the squad. The tension was palpable, a living thing that thrummed through the air. What's the plan, Cap? Asked Private Sanchez, a young man whose youthful bravado had been tempered by the fire of constant battle. Jensen's working on something that might give us a fighting chance, Elias replied. We hold here until then. The rumble from above grew louder, the sound of the Zyrex forces converging. Elias knew it was only a matter of time before they were discovered. He felt the weight of leadership like a noose around his neck, each decision a potential death sentence for his people. Captain, Jensen's voice crackled in his earpiece, filled with static and hope. I think I've got something. Patching you in. The screen in front of him flickered to life, bathing the room in an eerie blue glow. Lines of code scrolled past, a digital tapestry of forgotten defenses and protocols. Elias's heart raced. If they could activate even a fraction of these systems, they might be able to turn the tide. Zyrex forces are breaching in T-3 minutes, Vera reported, her voice tinged with urgency. We need to hold them off. All right, people, Elias called out, rallying his troops. We make our stand here. Buy Jensen the time she needs. They moved into position, nerves taut as bowstrings. The air was thick with the promise of violence, the promise of death. Elias felt it wrap around him like a shroud, but he shook it off. There would be time for fear later, if they survived. The first Zyrex burst into the room with a screech that sent shivers down Elias's spine. It was a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal, eyes glowing with malice. Elias fired, the recoil a comforting kick against his shoulder. The beast staggered, but did not fall. "Keep firing," he yelled, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of battle. Plasma bolts and bullets flew, a deadly dance of fire and steel. The Zyrex were a relentless tide, their numbers overwhelming. For every one that fell, two more took its place, their footsteps a drumbeat of doom. "Jensen, we need that system online now," Elias shouted, his voice raw. "I'm trying, Captain. Just hold them a little longer." Elias gritted his teeth, firing until his rifle clicked empty. He switched to his sidearm, each shot a prayer. Around him, his squad fought with the ferocity of cornered animals, their desperation lending them strength. And then, just as the world teetered on the brink of oblivion, Jensen's voice came through, vibrant with triumph. "It's online. I did it." From somewhere deep within the building, there was a hum, a vibration that coursed through the walls like a heartbeat. The defense systems had awoken, a sleeping giant roused to rage. The ceiling exploded in a shower of debris, and the Zyrex recoiled, their advance halted by a sudden torrent of automated firepower. Turrets emerged from the walls, spitting death with mechanical precision. Elias laughed, a wild, reckless sound. "That's more like it," he shouted, reloading his weapon. Around him, his squad joined in, their spirits lifted by the unexpected boon. But victory was not assured. The Zyrex were cunning, adaptive. Already they were retreating, regrouping for another assault. Elias knew this respite would be brief. "We need to move," he said, urgency lacing his words. "The Zyrex won't take this lying down." The squad gathered their gear, each member acutely aware of the precious time ticking away. "Captain," Vera said, her voice low, "we're not going to outrun them forever." Elias met her gaze, his own eyes filled with a determination that bordered on madness. "We don't have to outrun them, Vera. Just outsmart them." As they made their way through the labyrinth of corridors, Elias's mind raced. Their options were limited, and the Zyrex were relentless in their pursuit. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was adapting under pressure. They emerged into the open air, the sky a churning mass of gray. In the distance, the Zyrex regrouped, their forms silhouetted against the horizon. "We need a distraction," Elias muttered, scanning the surroundings. His gaze landed on a derelict factory, its chimneys still intact. "Sanchez, Jensen, with me," he ordered. "The rest of you, head north. We'll draw the Zyrex away." "Captain, that's suicide," Vera protested, her voice tinged with fear. "Maybe," Elias replied, a grin spreading across his face. "But it's the only shot we've got." They sprinted toward the factory, the ground shaking with each Zyrex step behind them. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of rust and oil. "Help me with this," Elias said, gesturing to a massive, ancient boiler. Together, they worked frantically, rigging the machinery with the last of their explosives. "Go," Elias commanded, as the timer ticked down. They ran, hearts pounding, as the factory erupted behind them in a blazing inferno. The explosion was a beacon, drawing the Zyrex like moths to a flame. Gasping for breath, Elias watched as the enemy forces swarmed the factory, oblivious to the humans slipping away. It was a reckless gamble, but it had paid off. Yet as they regrouped with the others, the reality hit hard. They were alive, but the odds were stacked higher than ever. Their resources were dwindling, and the Zyrex would not be deceived again so easily. Darkness loomed, both in the sky and in their hearts. The path ahead was fraught with peril, and each step brought them closer to the precipice. But even in their darkest moment, the flicker of human resilience burned bright, a stubborn flame refusing to be snuffed out. Elias looked at his ragtag band of survivors, each one a testament to human tenacity. They were tired, hungry, and outnumbered, but they were not defeated. "Not yet. Onwards," he said, his voice a rallying cry in the gathering gloom. "We fight, we survive, we adapt." And as they moved forward into the unknown, the weight of the world pressed down, but it could not crush the unyielding spirit of humanity. Not today. The sun was setting behind the jagged skyline, its rays splintering through the cracked windows of what had once been the city's tallest skyscrapers. A haunting crimson light bathed the desolate streets and cast long shadows across the rubble-strewn avenues. It was a cruel reminder of the vibrant days before the invaders. Those few who stood amidst the wreckage were the last vestiges of humanity, clinging to the hope that flickered like a candle in a storm. "All right, listen up," rasped John Stone Anderson, his voice gravelly from years of smoke and dust inhalation. He was a hulking figure, all muscle and grit, with eyes hardened by tragedy and determination. Around him, the ragtag group of survivors huddled closer, forming a tight semicircle. Each face bore the same expression, a mixture of fear, defiance, and a stubborn refusal to succumb. The invaders, those malevolent entities who had swept across Earth with their superior technology and unyielding numbers, thought that they had won. Their patrols were growing less frequent, their vigilance waning. They believed humanity was broken, scattered, and on the brink of extinction. They were wrong. "We hit 'em where it hurts," Stone continued, pointing to a crudely drawn map spread out on the ground. "Their power plant. It's the nerve center for the entire sector. Take it down, and they'll be in the dark, literally and figuratively." "But Stone," piped up Sam, a skinny teenager whose age belied the wisdom in his eyes. "That place is crawling with those things. It's suicide." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, but Stone silenced it with a steely glare. "We've got no choice. We either take the fight to them or live as rats scurrying in the shadows. I don't know about you, but I didn't survive this long to die a coward." He let the words hang in the air, watching as they sunk in. The invaders, monstrous as they were, had underestimated humanity's greatest weapon, not their technology or numbers, but their indomitable spirit. A spirit that refused to be extinguished, no matter how dire the circumstances. "We've got one shot," Stone continued, his voice softening as he gauged the resolve hardening on each face. "Sam, you and your tech skills are gonna be key. We need to hack into their systems and shut down their defenses. Lisa, we're counting on your stealth to get us in undetected. The rest of us, we'll create a distraction. Give them something else to worry about." The plan was reckless, bordering on madness, but these were desperate times. Stone looked at each member of his motley crew, seeing in them the same fire that burned in his own chest. "We've got one life to live, and I say we live it fighting." As night fell, the group moved out, slipping like shadows through the debris-laden streets, each step echoing with the ghosts of the past. The air was thick with tension, every nerve on edge. It wasn't just their lives at stake but the very survival of the human spirit. The power plant loomed ahead, a fortress of steel and alien technology. Its ominous hum filled the air, a constant reminder of the invaders' chokehold on the planet. The group split as planned, each faction moving to their designated positions, hearts pounding in unison like a war drum. Lisa led the infiltration team, her movements silent and precise. She navigated through the labyrinthine corridors of the plant with the grace of a panther, her senses honed to razor-sharp precision. Behind her, Sam lugged a makeshift hacking device cobbled together from salvaged parts, proof of human ingenuity in the face of adversity. In the shadows outside, Stone and the rest prepared their diversion. With a nod, they sprang into action, unleashing a barrage of homemade explosives and gunfire, a cacophony that shattered the night. The invaders reacted immediately, swarming toward the disturbance with mechanical precision. Their overconfidence, however, became their Achilles' heel. They assumed superiority had dispelled any threat, that humans were incapable of such audacity. They were about to learn the cost of underestimating desperation. Inside the plant, Lisa and Sam reached the central control room. Sam's fingers flew over the keyboard, his mind a whirlwind of code and calculations. "Keep them off me," he whispered, not daring to look up. Lisa, crouched by the doorway, nodded. Her heart pounded in her chest, but fear was a luxury they could not afford. The enemy would come, she knew, drawn by the chaos outside. But she would hold them off, or die trying. Minutes ticked by like hours. The sounds of battle echoed through the corridors, a symphony of destruction. Stone and his team fought with the ferocity of cornered wolves. Each second gained a testament to their resilience. "Got it," Sam finally exclaimed, his voice a mix of relief and triumph. The lights flickered above them, the hum of the machinery stuttering like a dying heartbeat. But victory was bittersweet. The invaders, realizing too late the trap they'd walked into, descended upon the plant with renewed ferocity. Lisa and Sam were trapped, the exit blocked by a horde of alien warriors. Stone, outside, saw the plant begin to crumble, its defenses unraveling. They had achieved the impossible, yet his heart ached with the sacrifice that victory demanded. "Fall back," he commanded, his voice a roar against the chaos. The survivors retreated, their spirits bruised but unbroken. This was not an end, but a beginning. They had shown the invaders that humanity would not go quietly into the night. Stone, bloodied and battered, stood tall amidst the ruins. His gaze turned skyward, where the alien mothership hovered like a malevolent specter. "You're not invincible," he muttered, the words a promise and a threat. The seeds of resurgence had been sown, watered with sacrifice and determination. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and had not faltered. They had not won, but they had not lost. And as long as a single human heart beat with defiance, the invaders would never truly conquer. In the distance, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and purple. It was a new day, and no matter how bleak the night had been, the sun would always rise again. Stone turned to his comrades, seeing in their eyes the same fire that burned within him. "We'll rebuild," he said, his voice carrying across the ruins. "We'll fight, and we will rise." The invaders might have thought they had extinguished hope, but they were wrong. Hope was a phoenix, rising from the ashes of despair, and humanity, against all odds, was ready to soar once more. The sky was a canvas painted with the billowing smoke of burning cities, a testimony to the chaos that had reigned ever since the invaders had arrived. Their ships hung ominously above Earth like carrion crows, each one a floating fortress brimming with weapons that had reduced humanity's greatest cities to rubble in mere days. Beneath the oppressive shadow of alien dominance, humanity was a cornered animal. But cornered animals are known for their tenacity. It began, as many revolutions do, with a whisper, a crackle over the ragtag frequencies of pirate radio, a scratchy signal that bounced between the remains of once bustling urban centers. "Here's to the ones who don't surrender," the voice croaked, sending a shiver through the beleaguered survivors huddled in bunkers and basements. "Here's to the ones who fight back." In a subterranean lab beneath the ruins of Chicago, a haphazard collective of engineers, hackers, and plain stubborn bastards gathered. Kara, a former aerospace engineer turned resistance leader, stood at the center of the chaos. Her short-cropped hair and grease-streaked face gave her the appearance of a warrior monk from a forgotten age. She slammed a thick sheaf of schematics onto a table cluttered with wires and circuit boards. "Listen up, folks," she barked, her voice cutting through the tension. "We've got one shot at this, one. The invaders think they've got us beat, but we're not done. We've got a weapon they've never faced before." Gareth, a grizzled veteran who had once been a high school science teacher, leaned in with skepticism etched across his features. "And what's that, Kara? A new missile? Some kind of EMP?" Kara grinned, a flash of teeth that promised defiance. "No, Gareth, it's something better, something they'll never see coming. We're gonna hack their ships." The room fell into a stunned silence. Hacking was a trick humans had perfected over decades, but against an alien technology millions of years more advanced? It seemed like a fool's errand. But Kara didn't flinch. "The invaders rely on their tech more than we do. They think they've got us outgunned and outsmarted. But we've got something they don't: improvisation, adaptability. Guts. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, a spark of hope igniting the gloom. Elsewhere, the invaders grew complacent, their arrogance as vast as the void between stars. They reveled in their conquest, their minds incapable of comprehending the true depth of human resilience. Until that day came. The day when the first of their ships faltered, a massive dreadnought hanging over New York City like a storm cloud. In the city's battered streets, the people stirred. They had grown used to the ships blotting out the sun, but this time, something was different. The engines of the dreadnought sputtered, its lights flickering in a strobe of confusion. Kara's plan was in motion. "Get ready," she whispered into her headset, fingers dancing across the keyboard. The codes were running, snaking through alien systems like a virus, one born of human ingenuity and desperation. "We're going to show them what human persistence looks like." In the command center of the alien ship, Captain Varak was alarmed. The controls flickered, screens blaring warnings in an alien tongue that translated to one chilling word: compromised. Varak's subordinates scurried, their appendages skittering over crystalline consoles. "It's a malfunction," one suggested, the nervous trill betraying their uncertainty. But Varak knew better. Their technology was flawless, except when faced with unpredictability. "This is not a malfunction," Varak hissed, mandibles clicking in agitation. "This is them, the humans." The thought was almost laughable if it weren't so terrifying. Humans, the species they had deemed primitive, had somehow breached their defenses. Varak's arrogance crumbled as the ship shuddered, systems faltering one by one. Outside, the humans cheered, a sound so distinct, a cacophony of defiance that could not be ignored. Kara's voice rang clear over the intercom. "That's one down, people. Time to hit the next one. We'll show them what happens when you underestimate us." The resistance moved like a well-oiled machine. Across the globe, teams emerged from hiding, armed with nothing more than scavenged tech and sheer audacity. What the invaders had failed to recognize was that humanity had spent centuries fighting each other, honing skills in survival and guerrilla tactics. Now, they turned those skills outward. In the skies above Tokyo, another ship wavered, its cloaking device sputtering out in a spray of sparks. The invaders panicked, their command structure fraying as ship after ship succumbed to the relentless human onslaught. Gareth, stationed in a makeshift command center in the bowels of what used to be a shopping mall, watched with a mix of awe and disbelief as another alien icon of power faltered. "I'll be damned," he muttered. "We're doing it. We're really doing it." But the invaders were not without their own cunning. As their ships faltered, they transitioned to a ground assault, deploying troops in a last-ditch effort to reassert control. They descended upon the cities, their weapons ready to unleash devastation. Yet, on the ground was where humans thrived. They knew the terrain, every alleyway, every crumbling building. They fought with tools of their own making: Molotov cocktails, homemade explosives, and sheer will. Each engagement was a testament to human tenacity, an unyielding refusal to be conquered. Kara led a charge through the ruins of Chicago, her team moving like shadows between the skeletal remains of skyscrapers. They ambushed alien patrols with precision, each victory a testament to their adaptability. With each skirmish, they learned, adapting to alien tactics, exploiting every weakness. It was in one such skirmish that Kara faced Varak, the alien captain who had finally descended from the failing ship. He was a towering figure, clad in armor that gleamed with otherworldly menace. His eyes met Kara's, filled with disdain. "You are a fool," Varak snarled, his voice resonating like grinding metal. "You think you can defy us with your primitive ways?" Kara didn't flinch, meeting his gaze with a defiant grin. "Underestimating us was your first mistake," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for our future." Their battle was a blur, a clash of alien technology against human grit. Kara fought with a ferocity that belied her small stature, each strike a testament to human resilience. It was a reckless dance of survival, a reminder that sometimes, desperation could fuel the greatest strength. As the tide of battle shifted in humanity's favor, the invaders faltered. Their confidence shattered. Their forces were driven back, unable to match the unpredictable ferocity of a species that refused to surrender. In the end, it wasn't just the coordinated attacks or the hacked ships that won the day. It was the human spirit. A spirit that thrived in adversity, that found strength in unity. As the last of the alien ships retreated, fleeing the relentless tide of human defiance, the realization dawned upon them. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The smoke began to clear, revealing a battered world that had once again found its voice. A world united by a common purpose, where the ruins of the past served as a foundation for the future. In the aftermath, as the remnants of the resistance gathered, Kara stood among them, bruised but unbroken. The whisper that had sparked a revolution had grown into a roar, a clarion call that echoed across the globe. "We've shown them what we're made of," she declared, her voice carrying the weight of newfound hope. "They thought they could break us, but we're still standing. We've proven that humanity is a force to be reckoned with." And as the sun rose over a wounded yet defiant Earth, it was clear that the invaders had learned a harsh lesson. Humans, when pushed to the brink, when cornered and underestimated, could be the most formidable opponents in the universe. The winds howled like 1,000 banshees as the sky tore itself apart in a cyclone of fury just outside the fortified compound, a tribute to both the relentless wrath of nature and the iron will of humanity. The last remnants of civilization huddled within, a mismatched tapestry of survivors, each from different tribes, clans, and corners of the fractured earth. Every one of them had been drawn here, to this crucible of human defiance, by a singular purpose: to make the impossible possible. The alien invaders, having ravaged the world with their transcendent technology and callous disregard for life, stood on the precipice of final victory. Their arrogance knew no bounds, their underestimation of humanity a catastrophic oversight that would soon be their undoing. At the heart of the compound, a vast chamber buzzed with frenetic energy. Engineers barked orders over the din of hissing steam and clattering metal. Scientists pored over holographic displays, fingers dancing with surgical precision as they input the final calculations. The air crackled with the scent of ozone and adrenaline. This was humanity's last stand, the culmination of a desperate gambit years in the making. Captain Alara Vasquez, her face a map of scars and determination, stood at the helm of this orchestrated chaos. Her voice rang out clear and authoritative, cutting through the cacophony like a beacon. "We have one shot at this, people. Let's make it count." Alara turned her gaze skyward, to where the alien mothership hung ominously against the boiling clouds, its shadow a blight on the earth. It was a leviathan of sleek, obsidian metal, bristling with weaponry that had laid waste to countless cities. But now, it was about to face the full, unfiltered wrath of humanity's ingenuity. "All systems are green, Captain," reported Dr. Akiro Tanaka, the genius behind the plan that was audacious even by Earth's last resort standards. He glanced up, his eyes burning with a zeal that bordered on madness. "The fusion cores are at maximum capacity. We can initiate whenever you're ready." "Then let's give these bastards a lesson in human hospitality," Alara replied, a fierce grin splitting her features as she punched the final sequence into the command console. The compound shuddered as the underground generators roared to life, channeling their immense power into a singularity, a weapon forged from the collective will and brilliance of countless minds. It was a thing of improbable beauty, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to bow in the face of extinction. Above them, the mothership began to react, its sensors detecting the unprecedented energy spike. Too late, the aliens had grown complacent, their hubris blinding them to the threat that lay beneath their very feet. "Fire in the hole," Alara shouted, and with a thunderous crack, a beam of pure energy lanced upward, an aurora of murder and defiance. It struck the mothership with the force of a vengeful god, punching through its shields as if they were made of paper. The alien craft shuddered, its sleek surface rippling with cascades of electric fire. Inside, The alien commanders scrambled, their once impenetrable calm shattered by disbelief and fear. They had dismissed humanity as primitive, their technology as inferior, a mistake that would cost them everything. Alara watched as the mothership began to list, its engines faltering under the onslaught. "Is the payload ready?" she asked, turning to Akiro. "Ready and waiting, Captain," he confirmed, holding up a device that resembled nothing so much as a handheld detonator. In reality, it was the culmination of every scrap of alien technology humanity had reverse-engineered, a compact bomb designed to exploit the mothership's own systems against it. "Then let's send them a farewell gift," Alara said. Her voice carried the weight of every loss and every hope, the sum total of human resilience distilled into a single moment. With a deft flick of her wrist, she launched the device skyward, its trajectory true and unerring. The mothership, crippled by the initial strike, was in no position to intercept. The device struck home, embedding itself in the alien hull before detonating with a brilliant flash that outshone the storm. The explosion was a symphony of destruction, a cataclysmic crescendo that echoed across the heavens. The mothership's hull fractured, great gouts of flame and debris spewing into the air as it began its death spiral toward the ground. Yet even as the alien Leviathan fell, humanity's triumph was not yet assured. The aliens had a final card to play, a desperate ploy to take their enemies with them into oblivion. The mothership's core, a volatile reactor of alien design, threatened to detonate with enough force to annihilate everything within hundreds of miles. Alara's mind raced as she surveyed the unfolding disaster. They had come too far, fought too hard, to be undone at the last instant. Her eyes landed on the compound's emergency evacuation vehicles, a fleet of hastily converted shuttles capable of reaching orbit. "Everyone, to the shuttles," she commanded, her voice imbued with a steel that brooked no argument. "We're getting out of here." The survivors moved with practiced speed, a testament to countless drills and an unyielding will to live. Alara led the charge, her heart pounding as she vaulted into the lead shuttle. The engines roared to life, and with a bone-jarring lurch, they shot skyward, racing against time itself. Below, the mothership struck the Earth with a cataclysmic impact, the shockwave a palpable force that chased them upward. Alara watched as the land buckled and heaved, a churning sea of destruction that swallowed the compound whole. Yet even in the face of annihilation, humanity had proven its mettle. The shuttles breached the atmosphere, carrying their precious cargo of survivors into the safety of the stars. As the Earth receded beneath them, Alara turned her gaze to the expanse beyond. The aliens had been dealt a crippling blow, their command structure shattered, their forces in disarray. The tide of battle had turned. "Captain, incoming message from the lunar base," Akiro announced, his voice tinged with awe. "They're reporting that the remaining alien fleet is in retreat." A cheer erupted in the shuttle, a raw and jubilant sound that spoke of victory and vindication. Alara allowed herself a moment of relief, her heart swelling with pride for her fellow humans. "We did it," she murmured, a fierce joy lighting her features. "We showed them what it means to be human." Out among the stars, the remnants of the alien fleet fled, their command in ruins, their confidence shattered. They had come with the expectation of conquest, but had found only defiance. Humanity, in all its reckless, indomitable glory, had proven itself unbreakable. The shuttles soared toward the new dawn, a testament to the resilience of a species that refused to go gently into that good night. In the face of overwhelming odds, humans had risen to the occasion, their ingenuity and sheer bloody-mindedness winning the day. In the aftermath of the battle, as the survivors regrouped and began the long process of rebuilding, the lesson of the day would be remembered. Humanity was not to be underestimated. It was the peak moment of human triumph, a resounding declaration to the universe that Earth was not a prize to be claimed, but a home fiercely defended. And so it was that the story of humanity's finest hour was etched into the annals of history, a legend of courage, tenacity, and the undeniable excellence of a species that thrived on audacity. The victory was theirs, and it was glorious. The sky was a shattered canvas of burning hues, each streak of color a testament to the chaos that had unfolded. The alien invaders, once thought to be an unstoppable force, lay scattered across the landscape like remnants of a forgotten nightmare. Humanity, bloody but unbroken, stood amidst the debris with a newfound fire in their eyes. Jenna wiped the grime from her face, her fingers trembling from the adrenaline that hadn't yet faded. Around her, the remnants of the resistance gathered, a ragtag group of survivors who had been hardened by relentless battles and impossible odds. Their victory was a symphony of grit and defiance sung to the heavens, a story that would echo through generations. "Jenna," came a voice, rough and familiar. It was Alex, limping towards her, his arm in a makeshift sling. "Did you ever think we'd see a day like this?" Jenna laughed, a sound both joyous and disbelieving. "I didn't think I'd live to see tomorrow, let alone win a war." The aftermath of their victory was a tapestry woven with both triumph and loss. The landscape bore the scars of their struggle, cities reduced to ruins, fields turned to ash. Yet from these ashes, there was a promise of rebirth, a chance to rebuild a world where humanity was no longer prey to alien whims. Hovering above them, the remnants of the alien mothership flickered like a dying star, its once majestic form a testament to the indomitable human spirit. The tech they salvaged from it would advance human knowledge by centuries, a gift wrested from the jaws of extinction. Zoe, the tech genius who had been instrumental in decoding alien technology, stood in awe. Her hands traced the sleek alien panels, now dim and lifeless. "This is just the beginning," she murmured, her eyes wide with the possibilities that lay ahead. For Zoe, the victory meant more than survival. It was a gateway to understanding, a chance to propel humanity into a new era of exploration and innovation. She envisioned a world where humans and technology danced in harmony, where the lessons learned from this alien incursion would fortify Earth against threats yet unseen. Nearby, Marcus, the grizzled veteran who had seen more battles than most, surveyed the scene with a contemplative gaze. The war had taken many friends, but it had also given him purpose, a reason to fight beyond himself. He had trained an army of civilians, turning fear into courage, despair into resolve. He found solace in the eyes of the younger fighters, those who had been molded by the fire of conflict. They would carry his legacy forward, ensuring that the sacrifices of so many would not fade into the annals of forgotten history. "Marcus," a voice called out, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Lena, a medic who had saved countless lives during the darkest days. Her hands were stained with the blood of the fallen, but her spirit remained unyielding. "Lena," he nodded, acknowledging not just her presence, but the bond forged between them through shared pain and triumph. "It's over, for now," she replied, ever pragmatic, her eyes scanning the horizon. "But we've shown them, Marcus. We've shown them that humanity won't go quietly." Their victory had sent ripples across the universe. The message was clear. Humanity would not be subjugated, nor would it cower in the face of overwhelming odds. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species that thrived in adversity, drawing strength from their collective tenacity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with the colors of renewal, Jenna gathered the survivors. They formed a circle, a symbol of unity that transcended borders and backgrounds. Each face told a story, a tapestry of heartache and hope, of dreams shattered and rebuilt. "We did it," Jenna spoke, her voice carrying over the hushed whispers of the crowd. "Not just for us, but for every human who will come after. We've reclaimed our home, and now we have the chance to build something better." Cheers erupted, a raucous celebration of life and victory. In that moment, they were more than survivors. They were pioneers of a new dawn. In the weeks that followed, humanity set about the monumental task of reconstruction. Cities were rebuilt with a blend of human ingenuity and alien technology. The barriers that had once divided nations fell away, replaced by a shared goal of resilience and growth. Borders became irrelevant as humanity united against the vast unknown of the cosmos. Jenna led expeditions to explore the alien remnants, uncovering secrets that would enrich human understanding. The knowledge they unearthed was applied to heal the planet, to restore its ecosystems, and to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Zoe, with her insatiable curiosity, spearheaded initiatives to adapt alien technology for human use. Her work led to breakthroughs in energy, medicine, and communication, laying the foundation for a future where humanity could thrive beyond the confines of Earth. Marcus, ever the mentor, established academies to train the next generation of defenders. They would be guardians of Earth, equipped with the wisdom of past conflicts and the foresight to prevent future ones. Lena continued her work as a healer, using alien medical advancements to revolutionize healthcare. Her tireless efforts saved countless lives, ensuring that humanity's scars would heal, both physically and emotionally. The alien threat had been a crucible, forging humanity into something stronger, more unified. It had awakened a potential that had long lain dormant, igniting a fire that would propel them into the stars. Jenna stood atop a hill overlooking a bustling city, its skyline a blend of old and new, of human perseverance and alien innovation. The air was crisp with promise, a reminder that even in the darkest times, humanity could rise, phoenix-like, from the ashes. "We changed everything," Alex said, joining her. His arm had healed, leaving only a faint scar, a testament to the battles they had fought and won. "Yes, we did," Jenna replied, a smile playing on her lips. "And it's just the beginning." In the distance, a new generation played, their laughter a melody of hope. They would never know the fear of alien domination, nor the sting of defeat. They would grow in a world where humanity stood tall, their future unshackled by the chains of the past. The universe had taken note. The message was clear and unwavering. Humanity was here to stay. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, proving that the human spirit was a force that could not be extinguished. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Jenna felt a profound sense of peace. The war was over, but the journey was just beginning. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as custodians of their destiny. The horizon was vast and open, a canvas for dreams yet to be realized. And in that vastness, humanity would write its story, a tale of courage, unity, and an unyielding belief in their own potential. For the first time in a long time, the future was theirs to shape.